Yes, and welcome to another City Business here on solar-powered KRUU-FM 100.1 on your FM dial. We also stream at KRUU-FM.com on the real, let's not get into that, on the World Wide Web machine. Whatever's real these days, maybe it's hard to tell. Speaking of, we know something is real, FMC in the house, Jason Strong. And this past weekend, the showing of the Fairfield film, Dick DeAngelis, a big success there. Sondheim packed and just great reviews left and right from all the work there. But FMC, you can check out if you want to see this in like visuals for our radio fans who have it a little bit easier. I'm James Moore, and joining me in the studio, Michael Halley, fourth Ward councilman. There we go. Yep. Council person. Let's be not too specific here, but good to see you. What's happening at City Hall? I'll try to settle down here.
Glad to be here. I always like to start with that because, start with something positive. All right. This is just an informal review of the regular city council meeting from August 28th, 2017. We had the swearing in of a new patrol officer. His name is Ryan Mills. So if you see Ryan out there, give him a wave and a nod. He's our newest patrolman. We did not get a little bio. We did that last time. It was kind of nice just to hear a little bit about him. But Mayor Malloy was out, so Mayor Pro Tem John Revolinsky was in, and he did the swearing in. But we did not get the little bio, so I can't tell you much about Ryan, except for he seems like a very nice young man.
Great.
So hopefully
Ryan Mills.
He'll be with us for many years, is the hope. All right, within our consent agenda, there were minutes from a special council meeting last Friday, August 25th. I do want to talk about that briefly because this was a relatively light agenda last night. As you know, if you've been paying attention to the news, the Fairfield Foundry went under new management and was purchased by kind of local investors, and a lot of the jobs that were lost temporarily were rehired. So the city's involvement with that was just kind of supporting a request that they had made to the Iowa Economic Authority. I think that's correct. Economic Development Authority at the state level for some grants or loans or whatnot. But the city really didn't have any skin in the game on that one. Another local foundry was forced to sell by its bank, and that's the Falco, Fairfield Aluminum Castings Company.
Well, that's been there a long time too.
Yep, been there quite a long time. So just because of some outstanding debt and such, their bank, which the main lender is out of Des Moines, Iowa, forced them to sell at auction. And I learned something new. There's a term, stalking horse bidder, and that's a bid that usually a company will get prior to going to auction, just so they have a baseline of where they know they can sell, so they won't go any lower than that. Well, the stalking horse company had such a competitive bid, no one else bid at the auction, so it went to them automatically. Their offer on the business was contingent on eliminating all debt. They would buy the assets, but they would not take on any debt. So the debt owed to the bank would be handled first and foremost, and that would be paid as much as possible by the sale of the assets. The city has had an outstanding debt from a UDAG grant or a loan from back in the 80s. That started around $600,000.
You may have to explain UDAG.
Yeah, it's Urban Development something grant. I can't remember, but it was supposed to be a revolving loan. Okay. That different local businesses could use to spur some of their expansion or whatnot, and then pay back and get used somewhere else. Well, they being Falco, were the final local company who owed anything on it, and they had restructured it a couple times with the city. So it's difficult to say how much of that original loan they paid back. They have been paying interest on the principal for quite a long time. So the city would be able likely to find that information had our city administrator from 2010 through 11 not restructured the city's finances in a way that makes it impossible to look back. Basically did it in a way that was familiar to him from Illinois, but not the way we do it in Iowa. So we have a year where you can't follow the train of finances because everything got kind of messed up. So we don't know exactly, but we know they owed about $66,000 remaining, and the city was on their mortgage as their secondary authority, I think they call it. So the bank was first and the city was second. So in order to forgive the mortgage, the city had to sign off on it. So most of the council met in a very rushed special meeting because the sale was supposed to happen yesterday. So we meet on a Friday and the sale is supposed to go through on a Monday. And they're telling us that if we don't do this, 50 some jobs are lost here in Fairfield. But if we do it, the jobs are saved. So really there's not much choice. And in the big picture, it wasn't a huge loss in that the city did not have expenses tied to that revenue. I will say didn't have many expenses tied to that revenue. So of that 66,000, maybe 10 to 16 was supposed to go potentially towards a spec building that we're involved with FITA and the county. So it didn't burden the city too much, but at the same time, those funds could have been used for a number of things. So it is a loss to taxpayers that we had to, in a sense, forced to by the bank to do this. At the same time, the new company has talked about expanding the shifts once they get everything up and running and adding some more jobs. So it could end up being a net positive. This is the kind of thing that, sometimes comes, I don't want to say out of nowhere. We could have been given a heads up earlier. That would have been nice. Instead, we were told less than a week ahead of time that if we did not do this, the sale would not go through, the bank would foreclose, the plant would close, all the jobs would be lost. So again, it was pretty much had our backs against the wall on this one. The Ways and Means Committee will have to find a new revenue stream for that small 10 to 16, and it may never come that we need those funds, but we had an up to amount, I believe around 76,000, and the only funds in the UDAG right now are about 60,000. So we thought we still had 66 coming in. Now that we don't, or likely won't. Now the thing is, we forgave the mortgage but not the debt, but realistically there won't be anything left after the sale of assets. The bank will take everything from the sale of assets. Some of their vendors won't get paid. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for them to try to heal that relationship in order to keep those vendors. I don't know how that'll pan out for them, but so the city still is owed that 66, but our chances of getting it are next to nothing. So we have a policy at the city where any expenditure is tied to a specific revenue stream, and that's just to keep us from ever having a situation we had years past where debt would accumulate a little bit here, a little bit there from different projects that was not wiped off the books, and next thing you know, we're borrowing $1.5 million to pay old debt. We don't want to do that. We want to keep everything very balanced. So if there's an expenditure, it's tied to a revenue stream. So we'll find that 10 to 16, and it's an up to amount for the spec building that may never be spent. Mm-hmm. But since we already pledged it, we just want to keep everything on the up and up. So
great. Well, that's an involved and interesting trajectory pathway.
Yep.
And kind of an unexpected. Not completely unexpected, but the timing of it.
Yeah, very quick. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Thanks for filling us up to date on that. You mentioned FITA. I'll just throw in here, I noticed Brent Willett, now a former president of Chamber of Commerce and working in
director.
The city.
Yep.
He's now moving up into a heck of a position with the Health Care Association. Mm-hmm. And he's been with the Cultural Corridor for some time, right?
So he was the director of both the Chamber and FITA when they were still merged.
Right.
Back years back. And then he went to northern Iowa and then came back down to the Des Moines area and is now moving into the health.
That's quite a position, I think. Right?
Yeah. So he did such good work while he was here.
He was great. Yeah.
Just
good to work with. And congratulations, Brent Willett. I noticed Rustin put that up. They worked together.
Congrats to Brent. Yeah, so FITA, I just want to say, FITA, I was mad at FITA at first about this. They had nothing to do with it. They were just the messenger with this Falco thing. It's really the bank that put the pressure on, the bank that set the dates. The bank should have told us sooner since we were tied to that.
You can see, just as an aside here, a guy sitting on the bench from the sidelines watching, you can sure see how the bank has certainly the banks have leverage when it comes to this sort of thing, and also the timings on their side. Obviously, they've been dealing with this a long time.
Yeah, many years.
So there's always more than a few sides to every story, but interesting. It sounds like a salvage situation.
Well,
here.
the company that bought them has
50 jobs lost would be another big blow here.
It would be, and the company that bought them operates other aluminum casting companies in the area, and has done very well. So hopefully this is a good investment for them to get it, to be able to purchase it, only the assets. So they only are purchasing the physical assets. That's a good deal. And then they should be able to talk about investing in the Fairfield plant, and like I said, adding some jobs.
Well, I noticed B&F, the railway here right next to us, owned by Buffett. They put 4,000, 5,000 people on furlough. They're actually hiring back now, I guess, with natural gas prices going up a little bit or whatever, and coal moving somewhat. It's just, so there's some movement. While at the same time, we see Torinos closed on Mondays now and only open till 11 on the weekends. I don't know, that thing has sort of been like my Broadway sign. The first time I came to Fairfield, I've eaten there many times Monday. I don't blame them for taking a day off. Yeah. That's a lot of work. But boy, it makes you kind of go, wow, it's quiet downtown without that sign. But they're still there mostly. Yeah. It's just, it was an interesting shift.
It is interesting. I wonder if it's somewhat of a domino effect, if the theater no longer really being
certainly
operational.
The Red Rock
and the Red Rock,
closing kept them going on the weekends. You understand that, but it just, obviously business has to carry its own weight or things shift, and it's just anyway, just one of those things that was like,
yeah. I always thought of economics and as kind of similar to ecology. There's plants that come up and they can take advantage of resources, and then things are always changing, and so resources move around.
But I remember that sign from 75 the first time I came.
Still the same one?
It's been the same sign.
Yeah.
And, all this time, and just to see it off, but it's been a quiet downtown just more recently for whatever reason. But anyway, I don't mean to go off on a tangent. We're talking with Michael Halley. This is James Moore. You're listening to Solar Powered KRUU-FM 100.1 on your FM dial. After each city council session, we are happy to bring you a version of the events that went down the following day, Tuesday at lunchtime, 12:30. Also rebroadcast Thursday, dinner time, 6:30, and the following Monday, breakfast time, 6:30 a.m. Also FMC, Fairfield Media Center, carrying it live and in video Technicolor. Somebody told me they see me doing the head bobbing over here a lot. And are you really listening? And I said, I am. But now I'm so self-conscious, my head's not bobbing as much. So if you think I'm not now, it's a confusing world for you video watchers. Anyway, Michael, what else do you have on the docket?
All right. We had one public appearance. It was Mr. Joe Moshak. He's a local resident. Been here for a number of years. He was interested in potentially turning the sewer easements that the city will be getting all along Crow Creek, essentially from Lamson Woods to the university, and kind of piggybacking or transforming that into an actual walking trail. So he talked to the Trails Council, and then he talked to our city engineer, and city engineer recommended just come to council and take the temperature. So I'm just going to boil it down that there are concerns that if we try to ask the property owners for two easements besides just the one for essentially there may be two for construction and then the permanent easement for the sewer line. And if we come in and say, hey, how about a trail easement, that could muddy the waters, and we have to stay on schedule. We, as you know, are being watched by the EPA and the DNR and expected to move forward. So we've got the funding and we need to keep that process going. So we recommended that the Trails Council, if they're serious about it, to continue to do some preliminary work, but wait until construction has begun or maybe is complete, because the actual easement will require in some places taking down trees or leveling off an area to create a roadway. And that might be the time where a property owner would see that and then be asked, hey, would you be agreeable to a trail easement here? And maybe more agreeable at that time. But the city council, did not want to mix the two together. We have to keep moving on these sewer upgrades. And so we didn't say no. We just said, let's just not combine them.
Well, it's an interesting idea.
It is an interesting idea. It's not exactly accurate to say that the easements will all be in a straight, nice line. There will be portions where that's true, but then when you get on campus, a lot of the easements will go along roads rather than along Crow Creek.
I see.
So we'll see how plausible it is. Also, funding would be an issue because the Trails Council would have to find the funding for it, and it's not a short piece of trail. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't do the same crushed stone they did in the rest of the trail. Maybe they keep it simpler, but it is an interesting idea.
Are they behind it? Hard to say yet.
Hard to say.
In other words, this was just an idea presented.
Yes.
And so there's more time for that to...
Exactly. So then in our action items and resolutions, this is the unfortunate reality. We had to accept an insurance claim from the Derek Wolfcool theft. And actually, it came back in the city's favor. So they paid us, the insurance company paid us nearly $18,000. They did not pay the $1,000 deductible from the policy. So they paid us almost the entire amount of the funds that were used for personal use. Now, the state code says that all public monies, all public revenue must be spent for the public good. So Mr. Wolfcool had been using a Park and Rec credit card and charging things to companies like Amazon and iTunes and not itemizing what was on there. And there were private, non-public use expenditures on there. Now, what's interesting is former city administrator Mike Harmon was already putting a policy in place really before this happened, but then I think this really cemented it, that anytime a city employee uses a credit card, they have to itemize and show the receipt.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so just to keep, and they have to sign it. And so by signing it, they're legally saying, yes, these are public funds. So it was really just an unfortunate thing. But so the insurance company will then work to get repaid from Mr. Wolfcool. So we don't have to deal with that. They just cut us a check and then they work on getting it. But perhaps it's a cautionary tale to any other public employees, not just in the city, but everywhere. You can't really get away with it at some point.
Is there an amount associated with that? Or is that...
Well, it was almost, I could give you the exact number. If you're really curious, $17,882.24 is the amount of the check. So, yeah. And that's all that we could find. There may have been more that was there. All right. The next was a kind of a good news. Usually when you consider a change order on a project, and this is for the bid package 2 equalization basin project at the wastewater plant, it's to increase the amount of the project. This was a decrease. And the reason was this particular, I'm not going to get into too much of the details, but it was an area in the basin where some cement could have been there to take out granular material, and it was bid separately to see if it made sense, the cost to build it versus the cost to pay to have the granular gunk, for lack of a more technical term, removed manually. And it came out that the price that it came in at did not make sense for how often and the cost and how often the wastewater plant would have to do this. So we took it out. So 100 some thousand, it was 140,000.
Oh, great.
Gets to come out of it. So it's just also that kind of smart engineering that they bid that separately. Because if it had just been kind of hidden in a larger bid, we might not have found that it did not make sense to pay that amount to do that. So we took that out. The next two were about the $29,843,000 sewer revenue capital loan notes. This is a temporary borrow while we build out the new wastewater plant and equalization building or basin. So what you need is interim financing. So it's a cash loan. And then when it's all done, we roll it over into the USDA loan, that very low interest rate. So similar to when you build a house, you have a construction loan, and then when it's occupied, it turns into a mortgage. Very similar to that. That's what we do with these city projects. So I believe it was a bank in Des Moines who is lending that, and then these steps we have to take to make it official. Couple of committee reports. One was wayfinding. So there was a new wayfinding committee or commission formed. It's got 3 council members, Darren Hamilton, Martha Rasius, and myself, and then a number of community members. And we, at our August 7th, our first meeting, we elected Terry Baker as our chairperson. Did I already say this? I think I did. Yeah. So we had another meeting just last week, and we laid down our ground rules. We clarified our mission statement. And so it's just making it clear that we are an advisory board to the council, advising on these projects.
Great.
And then our first subcommittee will meet, and that's kind of a signage, looking into signage, which is what a lot of people thought the wayfinding was just going to be signage, but it's so much more than that. But luckily, Darren Hamilton is on that committee. He works for the Department of Transportation, and he just emailed the group this morning. Department of Transportation has rules about wayfinding. So we have Highway 1 that goes through town. That's Department of Transportation's jurisdiction. So any signage along Highway 1 has to get their approval. So it's good to know what their requirements are now while we head into this.
Absolutely.
So it's very good that Darren decided to join the committee just because he has that background. But the first recommendation, I'll just give a little preview. The simplest first action that we see can be done, and that just fits in already with the city budget, was a recommendation to trim the lower branches of the pine trees on Central Park. So the wayfinding group found that they obstruct the view, so that if you're on one side of the square, you can't actually see what the businesses are on the other, and you can't really get that impact. I know our park superintendent, Pam Kraft, has actually been wanting to do that for a long time, just to have visibility and clean them up a bit. It's actually good for the trees. It makes the trees healthier, and it'll prevent the kids from climbing them. So there's a safety aspect. So the committee, the wayfinding group, will take this recommendation to the Park and Rec Advisory Board, and if they agree with it, they'll take it then to council, and we'll see if everyone agrees it's a good idea.
Cool. And you're learning how local government works. I feel like I was on a weekly Park and Rec's TV show, just thinking about how everybody works and goes there, and it comes to this. But that is a beautiful little symphony, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I explained, we got an email. The whole council got 2 emails from a gentleman wanting to talk about 2 different issues. One, where a house used to be that burned down. He's like, what's going on with that property? So I said, well, that would be handled by property committee. Here's the chairperson. And then the second was about a traffic flow issue. And I said, that would be handled by public safety transportation. Here's their chairperson. So he thought that I should just email these issues to the full council. And then he said, I expect these to be taken care of. Not quite that simple. His level of involvement does he really want to see these through, is going to have to be a little more than that. Come into committee, talking about the issues.
By the way, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, kind of like Joe Moshak did. You don't just send an email and walk away. It's not quite enough on some of these issues.
Well, it's also just one of my favorite parts about what we do in explaining what's going down each week is just, again, if you have something, I mean, this is our government. They work for us. Yep. That's what it's about. But to think that because I want this, here it is, and I'll get it done, that may be an impulse in some cases, but to know specifically this issue goes to that category, and there is a subcommittee that will have input that will help shape, not thwart, but present, and then you can work through those, because really you're going to go through all those aspects, whether it's a full council or not, with these separate groups that are looking more specifically. Perfect example, like you mentioned, Michael, about Darren Hamilton with the transportation being on this thing. You could have had a whole bunch of ideas developed and would have come back, well, you can't because of this and because of that. So if you can get the because of this and because of that before you go in with the impetus for whatever you want to see, it just hones your message and lets everybody know, first of all, what's possible, what's been done before, and how to really engender getting it done. Okay, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. You saying that means more than if I said it. So it's absolutely true. We've seen businesses buy signs, put them up, and then find out that they don't comply with the sign ordinance. And it's a real waste of funds. So yeah, do your homework on all these. The committees meet pretty regularly. If you have an issue, they're easy to address. We're, I think, approachable and open to hearing from things. So
my experience has been that the times I've gone in for committees, and it's not just appreciated. It's a way of collecting data for, there may be that somebody has done this before and where their stoppage was and how you can either avoid that or et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a way of really getting what you hope across and seeing what's been done before. And again, I'll just say my experience has been the committees have been open, and it's a way to do it. It's another way. Not that there's anything wrong with going to the full council. That's also something people can do. Mm-hmm. But it's just a good thing to know. Yep. I mean, if your purview falls into a certain trough, as it were, it speeds up the process. It doesn't slow it down.
It's true. And most times, I think 9 times out of 10, if someone addresses an issue with full council, it's then referred to a committee. So,
and that's happened before as well for myself. But
keep that in mind. One more committee report. Environmental franchise utilities had met just before council, so the minutes weren't on here, but John Rolinski's the chair. He says that waste management, their contract renews later this year, and they want to provide, now they have the single stream recycling containers they want to provide another container for trash. Now it would allow for more trash to be picked up per week. The reason they want to do it is that their trucks can hook and dump. If they can get these trash containers, then they'll upgrade their trucks. And so it just makes it easier and more automated for them. But there's a $1.50 fee per month attached to having those. And some people feel like, well, why should I pay $18 a year when I can buy a trash container for that amount? It doesn't make sense. So the committee recommended a survey. So they're going to try to do a survey through the utility bills online. So maybe you'll see it on the city's website, maybe on the city's Facebook page.
Okay.
Asking people, are you open to this? Are you interested in this? So keep your eyes open for that. Last 2 things. The Fairfield Country Club launches fireworks on the 4th of July, but there was some mishap this year where they misfired. So the company that did it said, we'll come back and do it another time if you like. So they're going to do it. Council will approve them to do it this Sunday night. Wow. September 3rd. So if you hear fireworks, please don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. Just know it's one night, isolated incident. Maybe you'll enjoy watching them. But last thing also is, if you want to say something.
No, I just, more bang for your buck, I guess.
There you go. Yep. The street department will begin the fall brush pickup 7 a.m. October 2nd. So we do a spring and a fall brush pickup. We take all the materials out to the compost site at 20th and Jackson.
So you take those to the front of your residence?
Yep, put them up by the curb. And there's certain rules, like they can't be over a certain size.
I had a big something that fell off the tree out front, so it has to be chopped up a little bit.
A little bit if it's a certain size, but usually they just come in with a
wanker.
Yeah, come in with not a forklift, a load, or whatever. One of those machines.
A forklift or a spoon shovel or a knife.
It's not a fork. You can tell them. Yeah, loader. There you go.
Loader. Thank you.
Jason Strong.
For
the win.
For the win. And speaking of the win, we're out of here. Thanks for tuning in. This has been City Haps with Michael Halley. I'm James Moore and Jason Strong in the house. We'll be back, God willing, and the creek stays dry or doesn't. Our hearts go out to the folks down there in Houston and around the area, Louisiana, too. But that'll do it for City Biz. Stay tuned for more great programming coming up right here on solar-powered, people-powered KRUU-FM.